Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? We were coming out of the international break where we're looking at the next 7 games, with all of them being absolutely must win if we want our season to go the way we all kind of hope and expect it should. And we're straight out the traps, and wouldn't you know it, we've fallen at the first hurdle. Celtic have lost 2-0 to Dundee in a game that, don't get me wrong, I was very much expecting us to do a lot better and win the game, but really when it's all said and done, a lot of the reaction, a lot of the feeling from a lot of Celtic fans is not one of surprise. It's very much one where the writing has been on the wall for a little while. In the video today, we'll break down what we've seen in the game, where it went wrong, where it might have went right, should have, maybe a few shots actually hit the back of the net, as well as where does the club and Brendan Rodgers go now tactically with the squad that we've got. A lot of the post-match comments from Brendan were circled around where the solutions could come from and how it is very much a back to the drawing board exercise now for him and the coaching team. So we'll look at what that might look like, as well as the player ratings from the game and everything else that you expect in the video. At any point, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And as always, guys, in the comment section is where you leave your thoughts and feelings and your big takeaways from the game. Add them into the conversation. It's going to be a massive week on the channel with Stroomgrats right round the corner. Never mind Hearts next weekend. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one. Because I don't know about you, but when we were doing the preview on the channel coming into the game this weekend, I definitely felt that there was a wild card element that could have come into the team after the international break and some of the new signings settling in, and Rodgers and everyone clearly seeing the way the season has progressed thus far and the need that we have to, change things up in attack, or, find some way of unlocking our full potential, because we've just quite simply not been killing games off, not been scoring goals, and it's kind of been backfiring on us to this point. I expected that wildcard move to look like Michel-Ange Balikwisha getting a start in this one, but in fact what it was Yang started the game. That was the real surprise in the team sheet when it came out, that Yang was preferred over Forrest. We kind of knew Dyson wasn't going to play in this one, but we had a lot of Celtic fans on the channel commenting and highlighting our boy Taneke had played a bit of right wing for Tunisia, and it's maybe not something that is, a million miles from being a job he could do for us on the day. Other than that, there wasn't really anything too surprising about the team, the style of play, how we went around trying to do something in this game. We huffed and we puffed, and overall it didn't really amount to too much. A lot of the credit in the game does go to the Dundee team, who I've got to say, credit to them where it's due. They made it a game of very fine margins, and Celtic, we showed a clip on the channel of Ollie Glasner talking at a coaching summit or something like that, where he was kind of highlighting the fact of part of opposition analysis can be, you can see a team where if you actually let them have the ball, you just need to defend them and your opportunities will come in the game. And if anyone, we said it at the time and it's worth repeating I think at this point, would be playing Celtic, you would have a very similar strategy, and you'd be quite happy to forfeit possession to Celtic. And I think that was really the plan that Dundee had here. At large periods in the game, they've got their back five, which was very rigid, very compact for the most part. And then in front of that, they had, it looked like, if you weren't paying attention, it looked like they were playing like a 4-2-3-1, if you can see the midfield five we've made here. But it wasn't in front of a back four, it was in front of a back five. They actually had nobody up in this area really as a forward player, and they really just gave us huge swathes of territory on the pitch, and we really had our way. Throughout this game, the speed of getting the ball from just territorially, or from back here into this zone, was probably amongst the quickest that we've seen this year. There was no need for playing out from the final third, from the defensive third, and really pass to him and walk up and pass to him and move up the pitch. It was quite nippy to get straight to the halfway line, because Dundee weren't really too interested for the most part in this game and coming into that area of the pitch. And whenever the ball did turn over, again, we'll look at it with some of the footage, some of the highlights we've got in the aftermath here. But this is what was not a surprise, I suppose, to many Celtic fans, that it was very crowded in the middle of the pitch. Our striker was cut adrift, was isolated, and we really struggled to get balls down the centre, down into the goal kind of mouth area. And playing balls into this zone here, into this funnel, is what you need to be doing when you're dominating possession and you're pushing a team really far back. Dundee, there was some moments in this game where they were a little bit higher up the pitch and we were able to try and break an offside trap once or twice. More often than not, they were a lot deeper. But this kind of funnel area here, we just never got enough balls into that zone often enough. Dundee are always really happy to just defend that zone, let us play out in the wide areas, whether it be with Tierney or Taneke, and then we're having to play in front of the defence, as we try and come inside the pitch to try and find somebody else to to link up with, but we're just getting them buried essentially in amongst all the other Dundee defenders. We don't have anyone really capable or willing to break the lines and really try and open something up so that someone can get down the funnel, someone can get down at the goalkeeper and get some shots away on target. We have a good example of this early on in the game. We've worked the ball out to the left area, 2v2 with Tierney and Teneke, and quite often Teneke never really burst down the line, never really actually penetrated the box. And even as we look at this as a still frame, Teneke's going to be going inside the pitch, we know that. But there is so much room in and behind where I don't know if he's just not really oblivious, he's just not really aware of it. He's maybe a bit oblivious that that ball could be played in there. Could he turn and dribble his man and try and find Hatate directly? I don't know. And even as he does come inside the pitch here, you can see this huge area that Tierney or Hatate could be trying to attack into. Because that is, you know, look, if you look even at the back post here, we've got 3 guys against 5. If we can get the ball into that type of zone very quickly, then, you know, we're getting a ball across the face of goal and we're trying to get a goal very early in the match. This is at 0-0 at this point. But this is much more of a typical situation that we've seen throughout this match where, especially as we got towards the centre, all of our players would just be in amongst the lines and nobody is willing to play that ball through. Even as the ball gets found to McGregor here, you'd probably already know where this pass is going to go. It's coming out here to Ralston. Now again, we've got all the Dundee players having moved from the left-hand side towards the middle. Now you see the guys that are sprinting to close the ball down with McGregor. And between Negren, fair enough, he's probably not going to fire it into Yang here, but even try to drop one behind this runner and get Hatate on the front foot. And again, Hatate is coming into a great zone here. And if he was to have the ball played into him, this could work out quite nicely. But nobody, and this is just one example, and I don't think McGregor really is part of the story of this game too much, although he is like the example we've got on show here. Everyone was kind of in this mode where nobody was really passing forward, no one was really trying to break the lines. We always had somebody that was halfway willing to come and show for the ball, and the amount of time that we actually went to them or tried to use them was non-existent. Now this position here goes on to lead to like a decent long shot from Iheanacho where it's just one side wrong of the post and it could have been a nice goal, a nice bit of quality which would have separated the sides, gave us an advantage in the game, and you know it could have went a different way. But again, if you just look at the setup of the team and where the areas are that we're trying to attack, there's just not a lot of cohesion, there's just not a lot of clear thinking of the ball is in this position now, this is the sort of play we should be making. Like when Iheanacho is dropping into this zone here to get on the ball, who should be there? It's Yang. Where is Yang? Yang is actually in the Iheanacho type position. It's a rotation, there's a little swap around, which was no problem. Iheanacho should be pretty aware of that. The team should be pretty aware of that. And yeah, Iheanacho's long shot actually isn't too bad in the end and is a decent enough chance. But we should have a very clear thinking here of we're sucking players out into this zone. Again, similar to the last clip, there's a lot of space out here in the wide area. And can we get the runner to play in there? And then again, from there, we're playing crosses across the face of goal. I actually forgot how much build-up there is here before Iheanacho can get on the ball. He lays it off to McGregor. And again, this is another great example of just how deep and compact Dundee are being and our unwillingness to just zip the ball into the line. That space I just highlighted a second ago, we'll highlight it again, has got bigger. Yang is on the back foot. Yang is onside. Yang should be ready to turn and burn here. He should be ready to spin into that space and have some people attack the centre area. But McGregor plays it just to Hatate here, just next to him. And what does Hatate have as an advantage here to McGregor? Hatate has got like 3 guys around him. He's got his back to play. Hatate gives it back to McGregor because, you know, why are you giving it to me, mate? I'm not really the best one here. Get on the front foot, play it forward. And again, everyone's on their heels. Yang should be making the decision here for him. Yang should be running and tell him, play me, make the decision for the passer. The Gren's wanting into feet. And between Ralston and Iheanacho, they've just became mannequins at this point. Iheanacho takes the ball from here and is one of the only actions we really get in this game where there's some real direct running at the opposition, going right down the funnel and trying to get a shot away, which for all of 2 steps in a shot is saying something considering the way this game went overall. Now in games gone by, and you know, I'm thinking really about the last 2 or 3 games, we have seen some good push from McGregor coming down the left hand side and trying to overload into these areas. We've seen that again in this game here. I actually think Tierney and Hatate have caught some strays coming out of this game. I actually don't think either one of them were really culpable or particularly bad in this game. And I do think that, you know, like, did they win us the match? Of course they didn't. Did they cost us the game? I would say absolutely not. Could they have done more? Absolutely. You know, I think we can all agree there. But I think Hatate got into some nice zones here. We get a nice chance where he does play the ball down the line for Tierney, where he should be either Iheanacho's offside the whole time. Should he be trying to find Iheanacho on a cutback if he gets really down to the byline so that he can just make the cutback? He makes the shot. Obviously, it doesn't really go anywhere. But it was Hatate's ball that got played for there. And even with that Iheanacho shot that we looked at here, with Dundee being so deep and so and banking those lines in as compactly as they have here, Iheanacho's having to pop onto the second line of defence to get involved in play. And between Hatate and McGregor, they didn't really, and don't get me wrong, Hatate sometimes was like roaming in these areas, but whenever he was getting on the ball, he didn't have that invention to play it blind. He never knew the run was going to be on. He didn't have that confidence that his teammates were going to be alive to that type of quick thinking, that quick sequence of play, because almost everything he'd done was a straight forward facing pass to maybe a Negren or a McGregor or whoever else it might be. Now, Yang did start this game and we kind of highlighted him in 1 or 2 points there. There was a moment in the first half around the 38th minute mark where Yang actually popped up on this side of the pitch and got a touch of the ball or two. And at this point, I'm thinking brilliant, because Dundee, if you really look at it, are cheating, right? What do I mean by that? They're breaking the rules. They're basically saying, if we don't have the ball, every player is a defender, and this is the defensive shape we're going to be taking up. We're going to make sure we've got 2 players to go and close down each winger, depending on what side of the pitch they go on. If they try and come into the middle, we've got man-for-man marking, as well as other players that are just going to make it really tight and narrow to get those balls played into, where it won't be a 50-50. We can get a toe, a knee, a shoulder, a head on it, whatever, to try and disrupt the Celtic attack. And if we do, we're going to attack with 3 people. If we get the ball, you guys have got to kill. You've got to run up the pitch, you've got to attack in numbers, and you've got to play for the team. And by doing this, because when you look at this shape they've got here, like, I'll just kind of grab them and drag them. Like I say, it's like the midfield of a 4-2-3-1 here without the striker, and that on top of a back 5. You just look at that middle ground. Dundee have just killed the zone. They've just killed the area and made it very, very hard for us to play in. And then when we're allowing our wingers to just live out in the wide area in a 1v1 situation, Ralston never went beyond here in this game. I don't know how Donovan doesn't come in for this one at some point in the match, because I do feel Donovan would have opened up a lot more. Tierney was quite good on the left in terms of the positions he took up for clocking a 90-minute game, and some of the play he did have, although non-spectacular, did miss a chance he should have scored, or at least made sure we converted. He at least gave us some more down the left here. The left was the whole side of the pitch we were focusing everything down on, and when Dundee are cheating like this, we should be cheating as well. Some of the best moments we've had in the season is when Negren has went rule breaker and just went, I'm going to double up on this side of the pitch here with Hatate and whoever else has been on this side of the pitch. Particularly actually against Motherwell, we've seen this work really well with Negren, Engels and Balikwisha. They come off to really good effect. But we didn't have that for the entire first half. We were so rigid and so scared to like break rank or just read the game situation as it is and just commit more onto the left-hand side of the pitch, just let Negren come all the way over here. Yang did come quite narrow, so I don't want to really say he didn't do that, but there was a real resistance in the team, and maybe rightly or wrongly, I'm not really here to say either way. Nobody wanted to give the ball to Yang. We just looked at that clip there where McGregor could have made the decision for Yang and put the ball into that zone and made him run. I would maybe put more of the onus on the runner to time it and go, now play me, but nobody wanted to play the ball to Yang. It was quite obvious, and him coming off at half time I think was one of the easiest decisions the manager has made in his time back at Celtic. We have another clip here of Dundee United kind of breaking away on the counter-attack, and it really highlights everything we've just been talking about. Taneki's got 2 men doubled up on him. Tierney's made an overlapping run. He's tried to buy some space or give him an option, and that space has allowed Taneki to come inside the pitch, and this is something that Taneki did quite a lot, and Dundee were really happy with. It was almost felt like it was a real trigger for them. If Taneki comes inside the pitch, we are going to win it, and then from the centre area we're going to be attacking in numbers. Taneki's stray pass into McGregor here is so well read and telegraphed. I think this is Ethan Hamilton. He intercepts the ball. He's taken 5 touches in his sprint up here up the pitch, and as you can see, Dundee are really attacking with 3. There is a 4th player just coming into the back of the screen here, and Celtic are recovering quite well. The one thing that I'm always kind of complaining or moaning about in these situations is that we don't have someone that can confront the ball, and particularly with the way this has evolved, that's something we've not had available to us. McGregor's been in a real recovery position because of how high up the pitch he was caught out in particular. Tierney and Taneke very high on the pitch, and Ralston is tracking his man over here. So it's really just Vickers and Scales in a bit of a 2v2. Vickers has got to be aware of the man over his shoulder that Ralston's with, of course, but he knows Ralston's with him, so he should have a lot more focus on the ball here. And Scales is in this no man's zone of, Like, this is especially being the last man, but he's not the last man, but he knows if he gets done here, it's an open goal. They timed their ball pretty well, and when it gets out to this zone here, you can see we've actually recovered the defence really well. Tierney has absolutely broke his neck to get back in here and keep the pressure on, which allows Scales to go to the ball now at this point. We've got Vickers, we've got Ralston, and as we know, there is some Dundee runners coming in. And this, thankfully, ends up amounting to very little. We've actually defended the spaces quite well, and, Casper gets a touch on it, nothing happens, which is nice. But fast forward later in the half, and again, the Dundee game plan is very repeatable, very well rehearsed, and you can tell it's just been absolutely drilled in from the training ground in the lead up to this match. We've got Taneki out on the left. Now, right away, this is actually a much more inviting situation than the last one. He's got space, he does have people coming to cover him, etc. But Tierney making a great run, bursting into the box. We've got men in and around the area. Something should happen from here. Taneki tries to do a little bit too much, comes inside the pitch, isn't able to get by the one man he's got. Tierney's run has been killed. Hitate's got like 3 guys kind of magnetised around him. If Taneki could get the ball out of his feet here, of course, McGregor's made a fantastic run, and I'm sure he would do it, but he ends up losing the ball. And Dundee, like a little pack of wolves here, as you can see them getting ready on their mark, they're sprinting up the pitch. In frame, we have Scales and we have Ralston, so we know that Vickers is just in and behind. We know Tierney is somewhere over here in no man's land. I think Ralston does great to cover the ground and get close to the ball. Taneki's not able to keep the pressure on or win it back, but really at this position of the pitch, Ralston coming across has to do something, has to affect the play, has to make sure that that ball cannot be played behind Liam Scales or anywhere else for that matter. He's not quite able, between Ralston and Taneki, neither one of them are able to really stop the runner here, stop the ball travelling. And it's the same situation. Scales has been pulled out into this space here in a 1v1 with his man. He maybe lets him get a little bit too high up the pitch before really trying to close the last bit of space. He could have probably done a bit better with that. But between Tierney and Ralston, who are now in the centre-back zone here, and Carter Vickers, who's now playing right-back, nobody has got their eyes on the runner. Well, maybe Vickers does. That's probably a bit harsh on Vickers. But Ralston and Tierney have only got eyes for the ball, and by the time the ball gets played across the face of goal, the man's coming across the face of it, gets a good touch on it, and sadly it's an OG for Vickers. And between that and the conceding the goal from the corner, which was probably a pretty well worked remove from them in terms of blocking and their organisation for it, Dundee are leading 2-0 with it's a very, very fine margin, a well-worked counter-attack, which we've just looked at there, in a set piece. These are the really fine margins that, like earlier results that we've won have been decided by, like a real, the Aberdeen game is one that always comes into my mind. You can look at the St Mirren game as well with Luke McKibben coming off the bench, but very tight games of not many cutting edge chances, but the very finest of the margins are the ones that decide it. So we come in at half time, and I think we all can see that the shape isn't working and something needs to change. Brendan makes a double change at half time where he takes off Yang and Ralston, and he brings on Forrest and Kenny. The back three, or the defence, becomes into a bit more of a back three, but Tierney, to be fair to him, isn't really changing his role too much, although he is still kind of playing in this kind of centre-back position. And Taneki and Forrest aren't really doing the wing-back gig. Now, if someone is running down their side, they were both tasked with tracking their runner, of course, but we basically just took a defender off, got another striker on, and changed our right mid, which, on the face of it, isn't a bad move. We need another body in here to make it harder to be picked up, to give them more problems and give us more options to try and play down through the middle. Now, James Forrest, I think, when he first came on for the first 10-15 minutes of the second half, had some really nice delivery. We actually had the option and the potential to go down the right-hand side all of a sudden, and although he never really, did a James Forrest, got to the byline and was chipping balls in, the distribution he had from this type of area here was a lot more than what we got in the first half for some spells, and it was a nice new dimension to give the team. I felt like Taneki kind of waned in the second half. I felt like, and between Hitate and Negren and McGregor, again, there just didn't feel like enough connection between the three of them to actually pull the team apart. Hit the ball into Hitate, can you get one of these guys to commit? Have the other player running into space, do something a bit quicker, a bit more inventive, use the good football players to play good football. That's just the kind of base idea. Turn the techers on. And the change of shape and how drastic it was, we did this against Braga, of course, but this is something that I do give the management team, some props for, because Like I said in the beginning, Dundee are rule breaking, they're cheating by just defending with every player on the team. We need to follow suit. We need to just get real and go, we're the dominant team. We have 90% of the ball. Let's just attack a lot more. And this is a good kind of frame example of putting Kenny up forward. We still had Negren and Hatate really pushing into those forward areas as well. But as you can see, the gaps between Dundee players is very tight and narrow. And anyone who gets the ball into feet here has to react really quickly and has no room for error. In this sequence, Forrest is actually really happy to zip the ball right in between the lines there into Negren. That was actually a really nice little pass. And Negren, sadly, gets kind of held off by two bodies. And when you look at who, the runner here, Johnny Kenny, just put that on his head for a second, like a wee halo. He's made a run, but look at how many Dundee players are involved in that. There's 6 of them in there. Very hard thing to do. So Negren's made a simple pass to Iheanacho, and everyone's on their heels now. The momentum, moving players from left to right is gone. All the Dundee players are set. You're kind of really hoping for a shot and a deflection. It's kind of the best thing that can happen here, without some utter bit of quality happening where maybe Iheanacho knows that Tierney is out there, and Tierney could be receiving a ball into this type of zone. Very high expectation there, or a big chip across. Maybe Forrest could make a run or something, I don't know. But Dundee get a flick on it. Tierney's able to keep the play going. And again, you're still thinking the best shot here is like a shot from the edge of the box, really. Try and get a deflection on it. Iheanacho's in an offside position, so is Kenny. So playing any little balls is not really on at the moment. And Negren's found himself in a bit of a no man's zone, almost as a kind of wall of sorts. Hatate hits the shot and it just goes just wide. Again, another one of these chances where on a different day, if that hits the back of the net, I think we would have a bit of a different perception on the match. But these situations are coin toss situations. We're not really ripping Dundee apart here and creating opportunities. We're now just putting more bodies in. And because they are needing to recalibrate and readjust, we're kind of catching them on the hop early on in the second half. And again, we get a really good sequence of play here that, again, you can see, like, so many of the players are having to come into the second line of defence to try and play, and we just don't have those rotations really nailed down where if Iheanacho is going to drop in, or Kenny, then, how the sequence is going to run. Scales and Vickers, look how high they are on the pitch. Dundee are giving us the entire pitch here. And this is maybe one of the points where I'm thinking, keep it going, turn it up, go up another gear, take off Scales, take off Vickers, one of them, and just get Engels on, or Balikwisha. Just go and get another attacker onto the pitch, another guy that can get in amongst it, look, McCowan even, and really just commit more into this area here. Because still, when we find it out on the left, this is Balikwisha now at this point, so we've made some substitutions. It's a 2v2 out here. We're losing 2-0. And the cross comes in from Tierney. It's a good cross. And we've got 2 or 3 guys that are actually willing and able and in a position to try and attack it. Again, it falls to Iheanacho, and he's just, the first touch doesn't quite kill the ball. He's got a wee bit of work to do to get on it the second time. And, Dundee do enough to defend it, and you'd think they won the game then and there, the way they celebrated it. But this is the sort of way we should be starting matches. We know Dundee are going to do this from the offset. Why we waste the first half starting Yang and Ralston, with all due respect to them? Why we have not, in this international break, tried to work on an evolution with the squad? One of the things I was talking about in the live stream we did yesterday, we did a lot more kind of thought experiments on different shapes and formations, so if you want a wee bit more of that, feel free to check it out. If we look at the team that started this game, Ralston and Yang are not in the top 15 players in the squad, and when you're consistently playing what is the best 11, and I know Ralston's covering for an injury, but really in terms of what he offers into the team, I think we've all seen a lot more from Donovan, and on form, Sriracha really should have been playing in this one as well. Although Tierney, as I say, I don't really think gets fail marks for this game. Then you're handicapping the team every week straight away. Not thinking outside the box, not trying to find some different solutions is negligent at this point. And Brendan in the post-match has talked quite a lot about going back to the drawing board and trying to reimagine everything that's happening. I did have another clip or two from the Dundee game, but I do think some of it is a bit redundant now at this point, because the playbook needs ripped up. This whole putting Negren on one side of the pitch, Hatate on the other, and we'll focus down the left, McGregor's in the middle as the linchpin, the anchor, the controller, the metronome, whatever we want to call him, and that's going to switch the ball from left to right from there, is just done. Now, again, if you want to go into this in more detail, feel free to check out the stream we did yesterday. I'll link it at the end of this video. I would be a big fan, a big proponent of us trying to play with the 3 at the back system at a kind of more box midfield shape, rather than, if you think of it maybe as like a 3-4-3, but with the part of the guys that are in the wide areas just being a bit more narrow, the way that we know Negren wants to play in these types of zones, where he'll come into the middle of the pitch, he'll work hard, he'll link with other players, and he can attack into these zones here. As well as Balikwisha, who I feel is a very similar player and can do the same role on the other side of the pitch here. And I think with the energy, and you know, we've all seen how good both sides of the ball Hatate can be, and McGregor, if he does have like an actual partner in crime in there to do a bit of a two-man effort in an engine room with, you can kind of cover some of his weaknesses, and I think you can get more out of him in this type of shape. I think really that's one of the things I look at, is optimising the main team here. Now, I've been speaking on the channel for a little while, if you are going to go to like a difference in shape, how you really could integrate Arnie Engels as maybe being the wide midfielder here. And there's been some really interesting teams across Europe that try these different shapes, and this doesn't need to be... Like I've put Taneki here, if we imagine we're playing Dundee, for example, team that we know we're going to highly dominate possession on, where the back three can be made up of fullbacks, where you can just push them on throughout the game, and you've just got Carter Vickers operating as a sweeper. But even this, again, the wide players, we can talk about that all we want. We could take Taneki out of here, put Sriracha in, we could play Tierney out here, bring in Scales if you wanted, we could take out Engels altogether, of course, play Alistair Johnson in this type of position, and maybe bring in Trusty. There's maybe a conversation for Trusty, sorry, I beg your pardon, yeah. Scales, maybe even a Dane Murray. You know, there's a few different options that could come out of playing Johnson. And again, like, you can maybe look at the fullbacks being in these wide areas when we're away from home in Europe or something like that, and then we can really play both sides of the ball a bit more effectively, where we can be a bit more defensive when we need to, and then it has the ability to go on and attack. You can then make subs later in the game, where if you take off a Sriracha and put on a Taneki, or you take off on a Johnson and you bring on a Maeda, you could go super attacking. You know, you really could just turn it up in a big way. Never mind the midfield form. Sure, there'll be lots of conversations about this shape. You could play Bernardo in here, you could get some out of Engels, I'm sure, as well. But I think like the energy and the play that we get from McGregor and Hatate, yeah, I think that would balance out quite well, and I think you would get a lot more out of Balikwisha and Negren, especially having wide runners if we're doing this in a very attacking sense, with the arrowhead forward up here just kind of holding position, or in one of those other iterations where it's maybe a bit more balanced. And again, I think there's just so many combinations you could work here. You could even bring Johnson back into the back three and play Donovan at right wing back. You could have Sriracha on the left wing. You know, you could still actually do quite a lot with some of the better players in the squad to try and get a lot more out of them. And Amura could come back into the conversation perhaps as well in terms of backup and rotation options. But I think Negren and Balikwisha are two players that we really need to be pulling, not necessarily pulling their weight as in that they're not, but the team should be looking at optimising those two guys right now, because we need to score goals. That's the number one thing we need to worry about. If we start conceding more goals than what we have been, but we start scoring a lot more goals, a lot more of our problems go away than get worse, I think. There is maybe a conversation for making this maybe more of a 3-5-2 type dynamic, where you could play the Dyson Maeda, Iheanacho front combo, where you've got the target man with the presser just working off of him, and then again all the conversations you could have about the midfield development or whatever. But I do think like the thing with Celtic, a team that dominates possession, we should be owning the middle of the pitch, you know. And you could start Dyson, bring Iheanacho off the bench. You could do that the other way around as well. I think this shape, this tactic really just has the most options available to us, where we can get a lot more out of the team. I think out of this box four, probably the first one I would maybe even drop could be McGregor, just as a I don't want to say, I think that a good expression for it would be palate cleanser, but like if you've got just new shape, new kind of set of players, and we're not bringing in any muscle memory from some of the bad habits that we've got ourselves into. You know, Engels and Hatate have worked well together before. Engels wants to be playing with Balikwisha, you really do feel that. Hatate, I think, is really clever defensively, good energy. And I think the problem with Hatate is he's just not the guy that can shoulder a whole attack, you know, that is going to really be a one-man creative machine. He is a guy that plays well with other people, and if he can arrive late into situations, or if he can be on the periphery of games, he's got a bit more of an eye for a pass, a bit more willingness to take those passes, perhaps is the best way of putting it, than maybe what McGregor's done. I think you would want a bit of physicality in the midfield, like from a Bernardo or an Engels, and I think Engels and Balikwisha, the link up you get with them has been quite apparent to see And I think if you were trying to mix things up, that would be something to also try and enhance or maximise or get more out of. Tierney, AJ, all these guys can play in a back three. We could do so many combinations with that. And ultimately, I think this is the only way to go, really, if we are going to rip up the playbook and try and actually look at the squad. Who is here? And let's just put them all back on the page. How do we get the most out of all of them? And we could kick this conversation right down the rabbit hole even further and bring in Shin Yamadas into the conversation, as well as Simpson Pussies, you know, because if we've got a back three, different things are on the go there, aren't they? McKeown as well could be an effective player domestically in this shape, in a few of those roles actually, and you'll be able to mix and match up the players quite well. And the last thing I just kind of wanted to show on this, even with the advanced two, you could even play like your Dyson and your Taneki type players in support of Iheanacho, and again, it's just a real press situation. It's a real narrow kind of midfield three, and it maybe comes closer to the 3-4-3 type of tactic or shape. You can play, again, I've just put Negren and Engels in here. I think that'd be a really interesting kind of midfield duo in there, and if you've got full-backs in and around them. Again, we want to play players high and wide. Sirachi and Donovan are really happy to do that, and depending on which side of the pitch it's on, having somebody like Tierney and AJ just on the periphery who can either make those third man runs or can chip the ball in from deep to try and, you know, get the wide attackers or the narrow kind of inside forwards here onto the ball. You know, they've got that in spades, much more than Vickers, much more than Scales. Who knows about Murray and some of the other players, you know. And we know how much that, you know, these guys, if you think about how high we've seen McGregor in the Dundee match here and where he was caught out, if we're putting the likes of Negren and Engels into that position, again, we're really squeezing somebody. I think we could just get a lot more out of the players we've got with a bit more forward thinking and just like looking at the squad for what it is and saying, right, this is the squad of players you've got. Actually, what is the best formation for them? What is the best way to optimise them? And I think the number one weakness we have now is we give away the middle of the pitch. So the number one thing we should be trying to gain is the middle of the pitch. And how do we get more attackers and less defenders into the team, especially domestically? And having a shape that you can bounce between, you can just change the personnel of, you know, for domestic, for home and away, for big game, for wee game, without changing the you know, the principles will remain the same. I'm sure there'll be 1,000 passes in here between the defenders and the midfielders and whatever, but you just need to get the best players on the pitch in a coherent way where they can all feel that they're contributing to the style of play. They know their role. They're not second guessing themselves. They're not thinking twice about, oh, where am I meant to be, on the ball, off the ball? Did I make the safe pass there? Did I lose possession? All the things that you imagine that they sit and worry about, you know. And last order of business for the video today is we've got the match ratings coming out of the game. Now, like I said earlier, I don't really think McGregor is part of the story of the failing of this game beyond just him just maybe not grabbing the game by the scruff of the neck a few times with some line-breaking passes. He performed a 66 out of 100 rating here. Huge pass count, 111 passes. 46 of them in the final third. I think that's a territorial thing where we're just so high up into the pitch. Only 2 passes from McGregor went into the box. I think that really does say it all, doesn't it? Jules won 2, he lost 3, he made 2 interceptions, and he made a tackle. Again, I think he was overall fine. He was in good positions. He never really got caught out too much. Tierney, I did feel, was quietly not far away from a pass mark in this game. 65 passes, 23 of them in the final third. 9 of them went into the box. His big chance missed, of course, is maybe what derailed us a little bit in this game. He got 4 tackles, 5 clearances. He made some blocks. Very effective defensively. Didn't really let us down in that regard. Maybe positioning for the second goal is what we're talking about. But outside of that, not too much. Taneki came in with a 52 out of 100 rating in this one. Pass-wise, he made 39 passes, 23 of them in the final third. Got 1 dribble, 1 ball into the box. Not enough from Sebastian Taneki in this one. And again, I'm kind of reminding myself and all you guys, Taneki is in that category of Palma, Yang and Tilio. You know, he is a prospect. He is a guy that we are hoping levels up. He is a guy that we are hoping we can make better. We've all been very impressed with the raw minerals and everything he's shown us so far, but there's so much reliance on him right now. I was surprised Balikwisha didn't start this game, and I know he's not scintillating, but I genuinely think in every game I've watched him play, his passing, his execution of delivery, that lovely little dribble and shot he had against Dundee, he's got something that no one else in the attack has right now. As does Taneki in his own way, by the way. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I think that's maybe take a bit of pressure off Taneki, put some more onto Balikwisha and see if we can get more out of him, and then does Taneki come off the bench and affect the game a lot better? Does he maybe then come back better and stronger in any way, shape or form? That's something to look at. Otherwise, there's nobody really else in the team I'm going to really discuss their ratings. I don't think there was really too much meat on the bone for a lot of them. I will have a look at Tate though, because I did think he did okay, and we've kind of spoke about him in the video a little bit, I suppose. 38 passes, 18 in the mid-final third, 9 missed passes, and these missed passes will be when it goes out for a goal kick or a throw-in, when he's trying to play it into the final third and it's not came off. 6 balls into the box from Hatate, and considering he's had like very close to like a third of the passes of McGregor, you know, I think that kind of tells you a bit more about who's on the ball and who's trying to make something happen. And if Hatate could be on the ball as much as McGregor was, would we get more balls into the box? I think we probably would. Some of the guys off the bench contributed quite well in the minor minutes that they got. Arnie Engels with a 43. He made 5 passes, 3 of them into the final third, 2 of them into the box. Balikwisha, again, didn't really have much on the ball interactions, but 13 passes, 10 of them into the final third, 3 of them into the box. He got his shot on target as well. And I think this is a guy that, you know, we're going to get a lot out of. I'm hoping we do, certainly, anyway. But overall, the ratings were all in favour of the Dundee players. Luke Graham with a clearance off the line. Robertson with a goal. Astley on a 66. The whole defence were, you know, at it today, weren't they? Even that Ethan Hamilton won the ball back and turned in some counter-attacks very often for them. But this was a must-win game, and we lost it. And it is surely the only way is up. How many wake-up calls do we need? Next, right around the corner is Strumpf Graz. And I know a lot of you guys are saying, oh, I don't care about the Europa League. And fine. But if we lose that game, you will care. I will care. We will all care. We really want to win that game. They beat Rangers. They put one of the last they put in one of the last nails into the Russell Martin coffin. I don't want them put an egg on our face. We need to be hammering them. They're not a great team. They're very beatable. And if we come out the traps, especially with an unexpected, a wild card kind of team and lineup and shape or whatever, we could really just turn the page and get things going. I really expected that to happen against Dundee. It didn't happen. Don't forget to let me know all your thoughts and feelings in the comment section down below. On screen now is some other stuff that we've made that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. One of them will be the stream from yesterday, as well as something else, I don't know. If you did enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe for more. Hail, hail, Mon the Hoops.